Hey guys, beer. Now before you all start and jump down in the comments, I'm not drinking in the workshop. More than anything, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I've got to figure out a way of making something to carry these, because I've only got 2 hands and I want to carry 6. It also works that next weekend's Father's Day and I have not ordered a gift. So I'm going to make one. I'm going to make a beer caddy. But I didn't want to pay for plans, so I've done some very advanced cut listing here. And I'm going to try and use this leftover bit of plywood to create it. I mean, I've got a vision. I've got advanced plans. And I've got beer. What could go wrong?
First things first, I'm cutting the baseboard. And then I'm going to cut the side parts to it. I'm basing everything off the bottles themselves rather than using plans or measurements. So I've figured out that I need to cut a base that the bottles will sit on that's 240 millimeters by 170 millimeters. Then after that, the sides, it doesn't really matter as long as they're the right width. It doesn't really matter about the height as long as they're tall enough to actually hold the bottles. I'm actually cutting several parts here. The first part will be the baseboard, and then after that I've got to cut 2 widths, if you like, that I'm basing at 130 millimeters tall. They're going to stop the beers falling out at the front and the back. And then after that I'm going to do the 2 side pieces. The side pieces are about 170 millimeters wide, but they're going to be really tall because they're going to feature a handle at the top. That handle needs to be higher than the beer bottles themselves. As you can see, I'm using a combination of the track saw for the longer lengths and then the chop saw or miter saw for the shorter lengths. This combo works out really well. I do love having a table saw, but I'm a bit scared of using it. So the track saw and miter saw combo works best for me. You use whatever you got available.
Okay, so after just 3 minutes of a few cuts, I've now got the base, which should hold 6 of these and be the right width. I've also got my 2 side parts, which are going to go like that. Now, this is going to be very, very boxy unless I figure out a way to template these to give it a bit more of a feature look. Feature look? Fancy look? I don't know what I'm talking about. Just making this up for a change.
So to create a more rounded look, I found the center point of both of my sideboards where the handle's going to connect between. Then I was going to use this tape and I realized that's squash and not very round, so I used a pot filler and then I just traced around the outside, the top half of it anyway. After that I used a ruler and literally just drew from the point that the side panels, or the front and back if you like, the height of those to the curve of the line. It's really simple and it might not give the most polished look, but it worked on this occasion. With the cut lines marked out, I covered them with what we have in the UK. It's called frog tape. It's designed for decorating. It's basically masking tape but less adhesive, so it doesn't leave a residue. Also, you can still see the lines through it. This massively helped. I can't tell you how clean the lines were by using this. But I basically just clamped it to the work surface, used the jigsaw and kind of eyeballed it. I'll clean up with the sander later.
So that tape did an incredible job of not having any tear out. Normally with my jigsaw I don't use the best blade, so I do get a bit of tear out, and actually that is the cleanest cut you will ever see on plywood. Anyway, the cheap stuff that I buy. So now I've got one, I've just got to do the other. After that I'm going to clamp them together I think and sand them both at the same time so they have exactly the same profile. Like that though. It's frog tape in case anybody's wondering. It's not very adhesive, it's designed for decorating. But you can also see through it so you can see the cut lines.
Stupid past me, I've literally just said that. How does he not understand? Anyway, I've clamped these 2 pieces together. The profile was pretty accurate, to be fair, but I just used the sander just to make sure that any kind of wobble from the jigsaw was evened out. I want these profiles to be the same. Not that you'd really notice if they were a little bit out, but it only took a couple of minutes, so I thought, why not?
Well, turns out a bit of 80 grit on thin ply doesn't take long at all. These profiles now match up beautifully. Beautifully. So, got my sides, got my other two sides, I've got my bottom. What now? Now I don't really want to assemble this because I've got a fancy new laser and I want to put a personalised message on the front to make this a bit more bespoke. Trouble is I can't do that because I'm waiting on a plug adapter to arrive because it's got a European plug on it. So I think whilst I'm waiting for the postie to arrive, what I might do is I might make some dividers to go in between to stop the beers from kind of clinking about, if you like. I'm not going to use the thick ply on that because I think it would be a waste and it's just going to add weight. So I have got a sheet of 3mm ply that I might just use. It doesn't need to be fixed in, it can just slot in if I design it correctly.
I cracked on with that. I just used 3mm ply. Now it's from B&Q and it is, I can't even tell you how wobbly and wavy it is. It is shocking. And I don't even know why I bought it in the first place, but it's been sitting in the garage for a while. I figured just one strip would do it, and then I needed to cut slots in it, so it's almost like a half lap joint, but kind of intertwined. I don't even know what it's called, but you'll see in a minute. After taking the measurements of the baseboard and using that to inform how wide or long these pieces had to be, I took the measurement or the height of them and then just drew a line halfway down. Now this is where I'm going to cut out the grooves so they can lock into each other. I was struggling with a safe way of doing this that wasn't the jigsaw. The jigsaw causes too much rattle. So in the end I clamped down a board to my miter saw, set the depth, and then basically used that board that I clamped down to kind of scissor the piece against the backboard or the fence of the miter. This worked really well. It held it very steady and it allowed me to keep my hands well away from the blade. After making one cut, I just nudged it along a couple of millimeters and made the other cut, giving me a width, or a cut width, of 3mm.
Fixed it. No glue required. Whilst I'm still waiting for the postie, I thought I might as well do the handle as well. Now, I've got this bit of beech, I think it is. It's from an old decking board, and because I never throw anything away, I've just kept it around. And it's actually the perfect size. Well, not perfect, but it's bigger than I need it to be, so I can cut it down. It's already perfectly square, so I figure if I cut it down and then just smooth over the edges with some sandpaper, bish bash bosh. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, it's just got to be smooth enough to hold in your hand. It should be strong enough as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a cheap and fairly straightforward gift and try and put a personal touch on it. And I can do that thanks to Longer. Longer sent me this absolute beast, and I'll be honest, I have not stopped playing with it since I got it. This is their Ray 5 10-watt laser engraver. And I love it. It's a freaking laser! In my last video, I did a review on it. In this video, I want to actually put it to practical use. How can I up-level a project that has been fairly cheap to build, not taken much time, and make it personal to the person I'm going to give it to? Now, potentially, this could be used to make money on personalised gifts later down the line. But for now, it's just a freaking laser. So, it's as simple as turning it on. It's going to get a bit noisy. Once that's booted up, which only takes 5 seconds, I then click engraving. I go to the project that I've preloaded, which is that one. Then I press framing. And it basically just does an outline of where it's going to do the engraving. That's important because I haven't got any measurements on my board or anything yet, so I just need to figure out where it's going to go. After that, safety glasses on. Off we go.
I've designed this graphic in a project called Lightburn. It's not massively intuitive, but you can learn it. That aside, this product is unbelievable. I am absolutely in love with this laser engraver. The great thing is that it's really light. At the minute I don't have a home for it, so I'm just moving it around the shop, but it doesn't weigh anything. And it does such a good job. The lines are so clean and I'm blown away. Every time I use it, I'm blown away. If you guys are interested in it for yourself, then there's a link down in the description. At the minute there's $130 off, so over £100 off. And I don't know, if you're going to use it, it's a bargain.
So all in all, that burn took about 13 minutes. And that's because I turned the speed down a little bit because I wanted it to be a bit cleaner, but the camera doesn't really do it justice. It's almost like a 3D look. I went for a slightly more powerful burn. I went for 40% burn just to get like that 3D look, and I'm hoping when I apply some Danish oil to this later, that's just gonna pop. Now though, I've got to assemble it all, and I'm gonna keep it simple here. I was thinking about putting some kind of finishing nails in and basically making it look a bit more rustic, but I kind of snapped my small drill bit, so I'm just going to brad nail it and glue it.
Which is kind of what I did do. I ended up gluing and brad nailing the entire project together, and then I thought something's got to make that front pop, not just the engraving. It doesn't deserve brad nails. So I had some kind of strange finishing nails, so I actually assembled the whole thing before then whacking the front of it off before the glue set and using those brad nail holes to drive those finishing nails in. I should also mention, rather than nails, I use screws going into the handle on both sides. The handle is glued, but then I'm also using screws as well. That's got to bear the weight of everything, and I'm not worried about going into the end grain of the handle. I'm using quite long screws here, probably longer than I need. And of course, they're pre-drilled. Despite the masses of equipment on the table, this has ended up being a really straightforward project. Yes, it's been made easier by having that equipment available, but I've got to say, even with this equipment and my limited knowledge, this has taken less than an hour to this point, and I'm really pleased with how it's actually starting to turn out. After a few hours of letting the glue set, I decided just to throw some Danish oil on it. I don't necessarily want to change the look too much, I just want the wood to be a bit more protected than it currently is. So, a bit of Danish oil on pretty much everywhere, job done.
Do you know what? I'm really pleased with that. For no plans, and yeah, it was done over a couple of days, but that was about an hour and 20 minutes invested. And I'm quite happy with how that turned out. I love the look of it, and the thing that really does finish it off is this engraving here. I just think it takes that simple project and makes it a bit more personal. If you want to get your hands on one of those longer engravers, then check the description. There's a link down there. They're currently running an offer at the minute as well. So head down there and you can save yourself some money. I'm happy with that. Kind of want one for myself now though. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.